In this video I'm going to show you how I built this electric guitar using only recycled materials, and as proof of concept I'll show you that it works with my very limited skill, but hopefully I'll get better. That's why I built this guitar, so that I could learn. We're going to be fixing / restoring this Squire Mustang by Fender. Hopefully some of this stuff works. It looks like this pickup might be damaged because someone had a go at it here. But the intention in this video is to build a completely new guitar with only the parts that are in here already. So I'm hoping there's a jack plug. What will change, however, is the bass, given that it's busted, covered in glitter, really ugly in general, really. The neck, however, relative to the bass, looks in perfectly good shape, which is surprising. So here we have the guts of the guitar. Thankfully we found the jack plug in there. And first of all, just to check that everything works, I'm going to take everything apart. So I'm going to desolder everything to start with. So here's all the components disassembled, and just to test the pickups I could use a multimeter on the 20 kiloohm setting, check the resistance across it, and this one looks fine. The other pickup, however, is completely dead. It has an infinite resistance because there's no connection. So I can't do anything with that, and the pickup switch becomes entirely void as there will only be one pickup. So the next thing I'm going to do is wire up all of this stuff and just connect it up to a speaker. Here's the rudimentary circuit. Here's the preamp, the jack with the adapter, the volume and tone control, and here's a proof of concept. That there is significantly louder than this here. You may not be able to hear it on the video, I'm not sure, but trust me, it is. So there's proof that the pickup works properly. So now to design the new bass for the guitar. I like the shape of this, so I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep these stripes in as well, but what I'm going to do is, with a nice pale wood, I think, make the main bass. These stripes are going to be a kind of mosaic pattern with lots of different colours of wood going into that. And then for the cover here, obviously you'll only have one pickup because we only got one functioning one. I think I'll combine these two plates and make it into one piece with a nice dark wood to try and offset from the bass. Now I need to actually go in and see what woods I have available to actually decide what I'm going to use. So I decided to go for all recycled woods. So here's some old oak book shelving, and I'm going to cut each of these in 3 lengthways, so we should have more than enough wood for the base. And then for the mosaic pattern, I've got this selection from an old project that didn't work out. There's lots to work with here. Got lots of different colours. We've got blackwood, oak, elm, cherry, quince, mahogany, slightly darker mahogany, and some walnut. And for the cover, for the volume control, the tone control, and so on, I've got this skirting board, which is nice and dark, but it's also not quite large enough for the whole cover to do it in one piece. So I may combine that with this piece of mahogany, which is obviously a lot redder, and yeah, well, we'll decide that later, but that's the plan at the moment. Now that I've decided on the base wood, it's time to trim everything down and buck it up. Here's the oak after the initial resizing. Turns out I made way too much, but this allows us to choose from a greater sample of colour and grain direction. And now the next step is to clean up the faces here so that everything can be glued together into one solid piece. Here's the choice pieces of oak cleaned up with a sander after sawing so that you get a nice tight fit. And you can see that they're on top of a template here, and the stripes from the original guitar, everything's going to be in line with that. I've got extra material here on the end, going to cut off and use to fill in here. And the stripes, you can also see I've added an extra 2, staying with the pyramid idea, just because I thought it would be nice, especially when I have the mosaic pattern in there. You can also see I've got the singular piece for the cover here. Here's everything cut to size and the final design pattern, and now it's just time for glue up. This is where we've ended up with all the oak glued up. You can see there's some knots, but there's a lot of thickness left in here so that we can get rid of those. Now the next step is to make the mosaics that I spoke about before. So there's going to be lots of bits of end grain. This is an example of what's going to be done to make these strips here, and each of these 5 strips is going to be made with multiple smaller strips of the mosaic to really jumble things up, and each strip is going to be split by another bit of oak. Here's the selection of wood, all cut to size. So now we've just got to make multiple random strips of different combinations of these. Here's each of the initial strips for the mosaic. I did have to cut extra wood because there wasn't enough, but it was still all just from that box of recycled stuff. Now the next step is to clean up each of the faces on these, because a lot of this stuff, for example the cherry, just came from the garden and it warped. Then so after that's done, then we glue up each of the strips and then cut those up and then glue up strips of the strips together. Here's one of the sets clamped up, and here is an example of what we end up with. And these ones are a bit shorter due to some, say, technical difficulties. So then the idea is to, for example, obviously you'll be with a different set, but to line these up differently and to make a more interesting pattern like that. Here's all the pieces cut up and put into place. So the idea is that will then flow over and then go back to oak right in the corner. So now the only thing left to do is glue up these many pieces. Here we have the result, and now the next step is to quickly build a router table so that we can make sure everything's flat, because I just took a belt sander to this and there's contours and everything, and also we need to lose some thickness. So let's get to doing that. Here's the router table made out of basically just lots of rotten wood. So the idea is the router sits in here, can go up and down here, and then this sled can move across and you can cut the whole surface. The first side has been flattened. There's a lot of inconsistency in here, but we'll get that out with the belt sander. Now I said the inconsistency beforehand came from the belt sander, but that was because I was just hogging stuff off to try and see how the pattern had turned out before. But now it's flat, and then we're going to be sanding off the irregularities. In an attempt to make this side as parallel as possible to the side I just flattened, I've made this little jig very quickly. It's literally just a pen stuck through a block of wood, and you have this line on here which is the shallowest point that I found around the edge, and then the idea is just to draw lines on that height around the entire piece, and then I can set up the routing jig so that it cuts to those lines. I forgot to film a bunch of stuff again, but here's a guitar cut out, sanded, and also with space for the neck cut out, and also fit the bridge and neck on, and played it a little bit, but I need to fit the pickups in, so that's what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to use a router and gouge that out. Now it's time to attach the pickup and put some strings on and have a go, basically. Here's the pickup just kind of loosely installed and sitting below the strings, and I've now acquired an amp that was given to me, and here you can see here, just play it, sounds normal, turn the amp on, everything's much louder, so everything everything works nicely. The pickup is perfectly fine. So now the next job is just to make the pickguard. So by design it looks like I'm going for more of a, I believe, Stratocaster kind of pickguards. It's kind of come up and around like this. I haven't quite decided on the exact dimensions yet, but I have decided that I'm going to stick with the same kind of dual mahogany look. On second thoughts, I've just found this tucked away somewhere, and it's made from all the stuff that the box of random blocks of wood that I was using before was for. And this needs to be very thin anyways because of the extreme irregularity here. I'm not sure you can see very well. But it needs to be very thin anyway, so there's not much else I can use this for. And I was having issues with this here because of staple marks. So what I might do, well, trim this down first, but what might happen is I'll use this. You put it in the perpendicular to the other stripes and split each bit with the darker mahogany stuff that I have. Everything's cut up here. You can see it's turned out quite nicely with this pattern actually from the random thing that I found that I did beforehand, and this is how it's going to be glued up for the pickguard to fit on the guitar, as you can see with the template. So now the next thing is just to glue everything together. Now that the pickguard is glued up, we need to get everything flat again, so I'm going to go back to the router table, face off this side and then face off the back up until we get the required thickness. Now that we've faced off the front side, we're going to do what we did with the guitar as well. It's just flip it over, mark it up on the sides, and then get it all down to one thickness across the whole thing. It's going to be a bit slightly trickier because it's only going to be a couple millimeters thick. It's all nice and thin and flat. There's lots and lots of shavings. So what's going to happen now, I've fixed this down. I'm going to take a belt sander to the surface of it, skinny it down just a little bit more as well. It's now been sanded and the whole thing's just a couple millimeters thick. Now I'm going to have to cut out the sections where the neck will go, which is in here, and the bridge will be down here somewhere, which I'll line up after I've fit the neck in place. So I've got the pickguard fitted in with the neck and the bridge and kind of roughly cut to shape. It's not finished, obviously there's a gap in here and whatnot. But the next step now is to put this pickup in, and what I want to do is make it so that it sits almost flush on the pickguard, just with this lip holding it up. Try and make it look a bit cleaner than it currently is, because it's a bit damaged, and if it sticks through you get this tape and whatnot. So what I'm going to do next is cut this hole out for the pickguard. I've routed out the initial hole, which is just a bit too small, so I can just widen it bit by bit and make it a snug fit. And I've also taken apart the pickup here, and the idea is that I'm going to remove this ridge in here and remove anything that will make it easier for me to fit this in from the top and then rebuild it from the bottom, so then everything just fits nice and smoothly on top with as little hassle as possible. A few changes have been made off camera, the main one being that I've now cut this roughly to be the exact dimensions of a Stratocaster, so the bottom 1.5 inches or so have been chopped off. The pickguard is also now closer to the Stratocaster design, and there's a couple tweaks that need to be done on it. So over here, if it'll focus, it's a little chip missing, same as over here. So I'm going to fill those in with little chips of wood. Then finally, the pickup, when placed in here, there's about a millimeter gap in here because I got a little overzealous with the router. So I'm going to create a little platform and fit it properly. The rough fit up for the pickup is now set in. Now I've got to route out a cavity in the main body to reduce the weight and to fit everything in. I'm going to leave this area back here for the knobs free for now until I finish the pickguard so that I don't overshoot anywhere. Now that that cavity has been routed out, this fits in. And what needs to be done next is to finalise the outline of the main body and of the pickguard, so then we can get to placing the knobs and digging out a cavity in here so that they can actually fit in with the pickguard placed in. Now that the outline is done, round needs to be put on all of the edges, and then also the contouring needs to be done, so back here where it rests against the body and up here where your forearm rests on the instrument. After many hours of sanding, we've got it basically done. Here's the back side, there's the contour put in. And now what needs to be changed is there is a small chip in here. I need to fix that up, try and find a similar piece of oak and get that fitted in there. And then go over the whole thing again in higher grits of sandpaper. Now that the body is finished shape-wise anyways, we still need to do a fine sandpaper cut. The pickguard needs to be done. The primary aspect is to get this part in line with the body of the guitar. I've now finished shaping the pickguard and put in the holes for the amp connector and the volume and tone control knobs. And then I also gouged out with a router locations for them. The amp connector is a little bit deeper because it has to be. Here's everything in place. So the next step is to actually screw down the pickguard, and there wasn't enough of the screws actually taken from the original guitar, and also they were very small and were countersunk. And with this wood, where a lot of it is end grain, for example here and here, there's quite a high likelihood of it splitting. So I've got these capped screws here, which I pulled from an old printer. I've got lots of those, and I feel like it will add a quite nice aesthetic, even though they are sticking out of the pickguard. I'd quite like to keep the plastic knobs as they match the pickup, but they're covered in glitter from the previous person who covered everything in glitter for some reason. So I'm going to let them soak in vinegar overnight and see if we can't get the glue and glitter off. The vinegar didn't properly work. I think it did loosen the glue a little. In the end, I ended up getting it off by scraping it with a razor blade and then buffing the surfaces afterwards. There was also a large gouge in the top of one of these, and I was able to buff that out too. Now we're going to try and remove the logo from the neck here and also from the other side. And the way we're going to do that is with this fresh sponge using the rough side, so it's kind of gentle on the wood, and see if some 3-in-1 oil won't do anything to it. After about 5 minutes of kind of medium scrubbing, both sides are now clean. On this side you can just about make a faint outline of the word Squire, but there's nothing to worry about really. The last few things that need to be done on the pickguard are to add a round on this top edge, do a slightly higher grip finish on the top, glue on this platform, add on some platforms here so that the pickups will be wedged backwards against it so there's no gap on the front here, and then it will just need to be varnished. I've decided I also need to round off the top corner on this little platform to match the pickguard, and everywhere else on the guitar everything is smooth lines, so there's no sharp corners. Right, time for the glue up. Now that that's been glued into place, the next thing is to fix the pickup so that it's kind of pushed through into the pickguard. So what I've done here is I found these random screws just from stuff that I've collected in the past, and I've made these little blocks, and they're just going to sit under there, and then these screws, which match the thread that was already in here, will push against those and force the pickup back through the pickguard. Since I last showed anything to do with the body, I've added holes here for the attachment to the strap. And I've made one design change. So instead of this fixing plate which came with the original guitar, I'm going to change that because it doesn't quite sit square. It doesn't sit square with the neck either. That's just not just me failing here, which I guess is just due to cheap design initially. So what I've replaced that with is just washers and screws, which I think provides still a nice aesthetic, but gets rid of that issue. Now, the final thing to do on this is to round in these corners here and just kind of allow things to flow a little better in the attachment to the neck, and then we should be ready to varnish it up. And here you go, the final product. A solid oak Stratocaster style kind of guitar. And like I've been saying throughout the entire video, it's all made from recycled parts. The bridge, all the electronics, the neck, the strap attachment, that's all from the original broken guitar that was just found in a bin. The oak body, that's all from shelving from an old library that was being thrown out. And all the Mosaic stuff, that's all either from the garden or from lots of skip collections that I've been doing for years. And even the screws here are from an old printer. And now, the only thing I need to do is to actually learn how to play guitar.